This morning at 8:15, I was a guest on a right-wing talk show in, I think, Houston, and this was hysterical. A couple of days ago, I guess it was Saturday, maybe it was Sunday. Anyhow, sometime over the weekend, all of a sudden my email box starts filling up with emails calling me an N-word lover, and and a couple of death threats. But I mean, it was startling, and all these ad hominem attacks, personal attacks, and I couldn't figure out, what's going on here. And so Louise checked the Blaze, Glenn Beck's website, and sure, because the last 3 times this has happened, it's been because they picked up one of my stories. And sure enough, they'd picked up a story off Alternet that I wrote, the one about how conservative economic policies are leading to a larger number of suicides, more suicides in both the United States, Europe, Australia, and the United Kingdom, which I guess is part of Europe. And I should have gone over to the Blaze and read. She told me about the article, and I was like, okay. I should have read the article, I guess, because apparently it linked to a clip that apparently the Blaze had done. I still haven't looked at it. Louise told me about it, but apparently to a clip or a story that some right-winger had done it at some point in the past, where they took a clip of my saying basically that Ritalin raises dopamine levels and thus diminishes creativity, and I said, therefore, the drug companies are trying to turn our kids into conservatives. Because rather than talking about how conservative economic policies cause suicides, this talk show host wanted to talk about that, and how that was an example of my being an idiot and not being scientific. So I think I tried to say to him I would be glad to explain this in detail if you want, but I thought we were talking about economics and suicide. But let me just explain it for all you conservatives out there and for our friend in Texas, if he's listening. It's real simple. First of all, conservatives and creative, those two words, right? Do they go together? One of the constant complaints that I hear from conservatives is that the creative communities, poets, Hollywood, actors, painters, writers, Andy Warhol, they're all friggin' liberals. So I would be surprised, I was frankly surprised that a conservative would be offended at being called not creative. I mean, because the creative, it's like, wait a minute, I thought the conservatives thought all creative people were liberals. But there's actually some fundamental science here. There is a clear association which has been demonstrated in the literature, and you can find this without a lot of effort with a search engine, between attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD, and creativity. People with ADHD tend to be more creative by most measurements of creativity than the average person. There's also a clear association between ADHD and low levels of dopamine in the brain. It's one of the neurotransmitters. It's the one that's kicked up when you take cocaine or methamphetamine or Ritalin. It raises the dopamine levels and causes hyperactive people to settle down and focus. And rather than their brains bouncing all over the place, which in my opinion is what creativity is, they focus on just one thing and they become very good bookkeepers, non-creative activities. So it seems to me that if conservatives are defining themselves as careful, thoughtful, cautious, these are the traditional definitions of conservatism. That's kind of the antithesis of people who are pushing the envelope, who are creative, who are exploring, and I'm not trying to attach that as a pejorative. I think that we need both in our society. We need the flaming creative types The flaming liberals, as conservatives used to call us, or still do. And we need the conservatives. We need people who are good, careful bookkeepers and like to join the military and say, yes, sir, and, whatever Limbaugh said, that's what I say. We need both. People who, do their jobs as they're told. Can't have an industrial society without it. So you give people Ritalin, you raise their dopamine levels, you're going to diminish their levels of objectively measurable creativity. And I wrote about this in my book, The Edison Gene. I mean, it's right there. I think there's almost an entire chapter on it. With the science, it's all footnoted. And it's pretty straightforward stuff. So take your best shot. It's like, but let's get back to conservative economic policies cause suicides, because they do. So anyhow, enough of that. I thought it was interesting that, that this guy had picked up on that whoever wrote the piece for Beck's website had picked up on that they thought that somehow that discredits me. And I'm actually quite proud of that book, The Edison Gene, and I would encourage you to read it. So